Hi, this is Pat Lillich. I've been a NIADA Artist member since 2007. My husband and I have started living half the year in our little 16-foot trailer. There really isn't any room for the traditional sculpting I've been doing, so I am changing now to sculpting in 3D on my iPad. Here's my iPad, which is one of the older iPad Pros with 16 gig of RAM. You open it with this. Here's the icon down here. And when it first opens up, you'll see something sort of like this. You've got one big ball in the middle. So here are all the different kinds of simple shapes that you can add, the primitives. You can make it look smaller on the screen with your fingers, going smaller, bigger. You see up here in the right, this thing lets you find the front of your item. We're going to start with just some of the simplest tools I use a lot, which is like the Move tool. If you look over on the left here, you can see where it says Sim. That's for symmetry, and that means that anything you do on one side, it will do on the other. So it's important that you get the front centered here, otherwise you'll be doing things on weird sides. So let's make this a bigger, the Move tool here a bit bigger, and you can see you can start squeezing in the sides, a bit like that, and you can come down here and pull down. Then you can turn it to the side and just start playing with getting the beginnings of a head shape. Not that this is a very good head shape, but it's a start. You can also, like I said, there's some of the other tools are like the clay tool. So say you want to add, so you come up here and you click on clay. You want to add some clay in the center here. Get yourself centered again. And let's add the beginning of oh, that's way too big. So this is the miraculous thing here too. Right down here at the bottom are go back and redo. And I do that a lot. It's one of the best things. That was one of the reasons I had to stop doing regular sculpting, was my hands would shake so much that I would knock things and it wasn't reversible. In Nomad, it's reversible. So we've now made the brush that we're going to be working with a little bit smaller, and we're going to come over here and add the beginnings of a nose kind of shape. Then a nice thing is to just add another sphere here. This one we are going to make a lot smaller, and you can do a few basic shape changes and stuff before it's validated. You click up here on what's called the Gizmo tool, which is huge. It lets you move things out. So you can see, here's the sphere we just added. It's way too big for what I'm thinking, which is just kind of a ball tip on the nose. So I just made it a whole lot smaller. We're going to turn everything to the side, and we're going to poke this out this way so we can see it. And over here, and I want it a little bit bigger. Okay, so that's the beginning of a tip of a nose. I'm going to validate it. Oops, it's not really quite centered there. Okay, that's more or less centered. You now have two items on your screen. You have the head and you have the nose. So see the lump on the nose there? That means I need to be working on the head. So I'm going to go up here to move back over to the Move and just start playing with that a little bit. Anyway, so that was how you would begin a new sculpt. Something that's nice to do is you have all your different projects in your history. And here's a simple one. So this is a head that's a little bit further along. I'll show you a couple of the nice things about Nomad are, for one thing, you can open reference images. So images that I've saved that I want to sculpt from. So here's one that I was working with this head on. I'm going to click on transform. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller here and push it off to the side. And then you just touch on the screen and that saves it. Now you can make this head be roughly the same size. And then you have another nifty thing where you come up here to this one and you tell it, I want to see this in blending mode. And you can take it down here. It's now a little bit more transparent than I want it to be. Pull this over here and you put it over the head you're working on, the reference. And that helps you see what you want to do, how you might want to change it. Because I'm probably going to have a wig up here, I'm leaving a bit of space up on top. But I could, if I was going to sculpt it, I might pull that up higher. But now let's go back to opaque. I like to get reference material where I have the face from multiple sides if I can. Then you can sit there and start working like this. And I can see that I've got issues with the eye that I'm going to need to work on. I need to make those deep set more on the sides. But for now, it's here. So here's another nifty thing that you can do in Nomad. We're going to hide the reference image. And we're going to go up here to the About. And you'll see this thing called Turntable. I'm going to turn the turntable on. And it turns it so that you can see your sculpt in all dimensions as you work. So if you open another project, this is one I was working on for this conference, which is the dragon head. Is this it? Oh, yes. Okay. So here is a dragon head cap that I sculpted because I wanted to have a head. I wanted a dragon on the child I was sculpting. And you can open this. You can do your sculpting. And meanwhile, you can also have the head that you want to have it fit on. So you can see how it's going to fit, if it's going where you want it to be, so on and so forth. So with this one, this is what the child head looks like sculpted. You can see I've hollowed out eye sockets. And at the moment the head cap is not on. In Nomad Sculpt, there is a function called voxel that will let you join together multiple pieces, like the nose ball and face that we sculpted earlier, into a single piece when you want to print it. You can also use voxel to hollow out perfect shapes for things like joints and eye sockets. Here in this little robot face, I have made the spaces for the eyes. I always struggled to sculpt the round eyes using things like beads to make the forms when I was sculpting in clay. In Nomad, you just add spheres and move them to where you want. So I've already made them here. Then you can, work on the eyelids and make them the way you want them to be around those perfect round eyes. This head is intended to have sculpted in eyes, so I would just voxel the eyes in place. The two spheres that you can see that you have as eyes, you select them, make them invisible. You can tell they're invisible because there are lines across them. Then you go up and you select the head that you want to actually make the hole in. And you go up to voxel. You can see voxel there. And you say remesh. And it's going to take a moment or two, depending on how powerful your thing is. And you can see that those are now hollows. The inside of this head is solid because I didn't intend to actually make holes. But that is how you would make them empty. And the nice thing, as always, because I didn't want to do that on my permanent one, is you can go back and undo it. You can use the same method for making ball joints for BJDs. Both Megan Lillich and I have issues with hand tremor, and it had gotten to the point where neither of us could sculpt the way we wanted to in traditional clay. Some years back, Tanya Marriott and Robert Tonner taught a workshop in NIADA on ZBrush. I loved it, but I didn't see how I could get a resin printer, so I let it go. But then I found Nomad Sculpt, which worked on iPad, and I introduced Megan to it, and she just took off flying. So we invested in a resin printer to stay at her home, and she started making incredibly jointed figures. So let's see, let's go up here and get the gizmo tool. You can see you can make a shape. You voxel it like we just did to the torso shape, and it makes a perfect hole for it. This is her Mori. And I think it has like 26 points of articulation. As we go, we're learning to sculpt in Nomad and also learning more about shapes. She decided she wanted to do the heart-shaped knees and anatomy. So these bones aren't quite right, but they look super cool. Again, each piece can be worked on individually and set back in place to make sure they fit together properly. So here are some final results from sculpting totally in Nomad Sculpt and then taking it to a 3D resin printer. One of the real things that I love about this is, so these were probably sculpted with about a 16-inch size intended, but it was possible to take them and shrink them down until you could print these incredibly delicate, tiny little miniatures that look so incredibly fragile and strange, and I love them. So I'm hoping that you might find it, what I've shown you, interesting, and also notice that you can, in the resin printing, you can do different colors and stuff too. We can print one and then take it and make it totally different so each one can be one of a kind. We can even change each sculpt as we print them, so each one is just a little bit different. It just depends on what we want to do. I'm hoping that you guys might have found this interesting, and some of you might like to investigate Nomad Sculpt and see if it works for your sculpting needs. Anyway, take care. Bye-bye.